Captain Titus, the Orcs have massacred the Forge World's forces, and they have taken the planetary defense weapons.
Clever of the damned Orcs.
Get the ship to safety and find another way down.
This is your plan.
We need to get to the surface to take out the gun battery. Or do you want to go home already, Sergeant?
Not before having a word or two with the Orcs.
Is that wise, Captain? The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
Try to keep up.
Among the warriors of the Angels of Death, some carve out legends which epitomize their warrior creed. As darkness engulfs the stars, and hope gasps its death rattle upon thousands of worlds, the deeds of a single warrior, though rare, can deliver entire worlds to sanctuary. For today, we shall elucidate a space marine of the Adeptus Astartes, who serves within the ranks of their most vaunted chapter, the Ultramarines. The former captain of the Avengers of Ultramar, Demetrian Titus. To be assigned within the most prestigious company of the grandest of Space Marine chapters is a feat unto itself. Yet to become its master is an honor reserved for only the mightiest champions. Born on the agri-world of Tarentus 80 years prior to the climactic battle of the First Tyrannic War, the Battle of Macragge, Demetrius eked out a modest existence as the only child of a humble family of Ultramar. Selected as an aspirant for the Ultramarines' 10th Company, the Scions of Ultramar, though Demetrian proved a capable aspirant, besting each trial set before him, many noted his raw aggression to be his greatest weakness, as outbursts of anger stifled his potential. Enduring myriad wounds, both mental and physical, during his training, with his ascension as a full battle brother of the chapter, Titus accrued many glories fighting the enemies of the Imperium. Badly injured when facing a Chaos Sorcerer in battle on a warzone of unrecorded providence, Titus alone slew the heretic and survived the annihilation of his squad, with many questioning the means to which this young Astartes had miraculously survived. Beginning the first of the endless attacks on his reputation, for over 175 years of service hereafter, Titus would routinely defend himself from the scrutiny of his brothers. His decisive nature and skill in battle for a time, vindication enough to shrug off all critique. Characterized as a warrior capable of surviving impossible odds, whilst Demetrius valued the teachings of the battle doctrine of his Primarch, the Codex Astartes, Titus refused to become dogmatic in his adherence of its principles. Assigned to serve within the legendary Second Company, the Guardians of the Temple, due to his immense martial skill and seeming invulnerability to the thrall of chaos, Titus befriended the veteran sergeant Sidonus, and for a time studied as the protege of this grizzled soldier. Fighting alongside the then captain of the Second Company, Severus Agamon, Titus distinguished himself for 50 years of service until a new threat would shake the Ultramarines to their core, the First Tyrannic War. As the Ultramarines' homeworld, Macragge, staved off the talons of this unknown cancer of the stars, the Second Company raced to aid their brothers in fighting Hive Fleet Behemoth. Arriving too late to aid their cause, the Second Company bore witness to the remains of the First Company, their sacrifice made, requiring new souls to replenish its ranks and bear the burden of upholding their valor and glories. Captain Agamon alone was suitable to lead this new elite of the chapter, and so passed on leadership of the Second Company to First Sergeant Lucian Trajan. Promoted to the rank of Sergeant, Titus began his career as an officer of the Ultramarines. His service alongside Trajan and Sidonus as a leader of his company's command squad, upheld as exemplary within the ranks of his chapter, in no small part due to his tenure as a scion of the now Regent of Ultramar. Aiding in the purge of the straggler Tyranid forces on Macragge, Titus began to understand the tactics of the Xenos as he led kill team units to confront them in bloody close-quarters combat. Yet after the cleansing of Macragge and a further century of battle, disaster struck upon the world of Beta Arcturus. In combat against the Eldari craftworld of Bialtan, Captain Trajan led a demi-company of the Guardians of the Temple to face the Asuryani Autarch. Defeating the Eldar champion in single combat, the slight made against the proud Xenos emboldened them to find a means to inflict punishment on the second company. As Titus led his command squad to face the slain Autarch's Aspect Warrior bodyguards, personally slaying 3 of their number with his trusty chainsword, the Eldar in their spite-fueled retreat captured a junior Astartes of his company, Leandros. Ordering Titus to assume command of the company as Captain Trajan attempted to rescue Leandros, Lucian sacrificed his own life as the forces of Bialtan ambushed his position. Driving the Xenos from Beta Arcturus, spearheaded by the strike cruiser Righteous Fury, Titus recovered the bodies of both Trajan and Leandros. Returning to Macragge to place Captain Trajan's body within a grand sepulchre of the Fortress of Hera. Following medical treatment, the young Leandros recovered from his wounds. Meeting with his esteemed chapter master, Marneus Calgar, following the burial ceremony of Lucian, Sergeant Titus accepted the decision of the Ultramarine senior officers to ascend to the rank of captain of the second company. Though many of his kinsmen cheered with the promotion of their noble kinsman, Titus himself had never wanted to rise beyond the scope of a sergeant of his creed. Burdened with the responsibility inherited from his cherished comrade in arms, Titus nonetheless proved a worthy leader of the Avengers of Ultramar, his former Captain Severus Agaman and Master Calgar, proud to regard him as an exemplar of the Ultramarine strategic brilliance, skill in battle, and noble bearing. Demetrian had served for 150 years as an Astartes. Through every battle of recent years, Sidonus and Leandros had fought by his side, as their company tallied victory after victory. Yet soon, Captain Titus would face his greatest test of will upon the Forge World of Graia. Demetrian had led his second company for a decade as their captain, yet despite his senior rank, refused to refrain from fighting within the most hazardous of combat zones. Intercepting a distress signal from the Forge World of Graia, besieged by the Orc Xenos, a force of 1 million greenskins, under the Wa of Warboss Grimskull, sought to pilfer a Warlord-class battle titan from the planet's innermost industrial outpost. Deemed strategically absolute, such a powerful resource could not be allowed to fall into the hands of the greenskins, and means such as exterminatus or capital weaponry were unacceptable due to their potential destruction of manufacturing technologies. With no liberation fleet within range, escalation of the aerial denial was required. Executing an Adeptus Astartes Ultra Request order, the Overseers of Graia called to the Ultramarines, a strike team led by Titus slipping through the Orc blockade of the planet from their strike cruiser, Fury of Descent. For 9 Terran days, the planet had endured the onslaught of the Greenskins, its planetary defense weapons seized by the Xenos, with much of their planetary defense forces massacred by their brutal violence. 3 Space Marines of such caliber would be sufficient, yet with their insertion via dropship, damage to their vessel's integrity required a means to deploy it in contravention of the Codex Astartes. Hurtling towards the Greenskins via jump packs, the Ultramarines fell from the heavens, the wrath of the Emperor making quick work of the Xenos as Titus's blade drew first blood. Aiding the beleaguered 203rd Cadian Regiment under the command of 2nd Lieutenant Mira, Titus's strike team destroyed the Orc-occupied gun battery, preventing reinforcements from making planetfall. Resuming their primary objective to secure the Warlord Titan, Titus alongside Sidonus and Leandros would be intercepted by the radical inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos, Drogon. Toiling on an experimental device which could prove a potent weapon to defeat the enemies of the Imperium, Titus acceded to the plight of Drogon to secure the device's warp-based energy source before it fell into enemy hands. Succeeding in obtaining the power source, the Ultramarines joined Inquisitor Drogon as he advised that the untested psychic scourge might prove capable of ridding the planet of the Orc infestation. Charging their objective with support from the Cadian 203rd, the devastating Calcus approach, though reaping a heavy toll of casualties, allowed for Titus and his men to power and fire the Psychic Scourge device. As the device fired its warp-infused payload, a rend in the material realm spilled forth demons of the warp, led by the Chaos Sorcerer, Nemiroth. Manipulated by a Chaos entity possessing Drogon's body, the Ultramarines watched as Khornate demons slaughtered the Orcs, their arrival heralding Chaos Space Marines of the Warband, the chosen of Nemiroth, to lay siege to the planet. Seeking to claim the energy source from Titus to be used as a catalyst to achieve his ascension as a demon prince of the Ruinous Powers, with the intervention of the Orc warboss, Grimskull, a chance for retaliation presented itself. Putting an end to Grimskull in a duel of single combat, with the death of their leader, Titus had struck the killing blow against the Orcs remaining on the planet. Turning his attention to securing the Warlord Titan as a means to confront the new threat of Chaos incursion, Titus and his men reorganized with the Cadians in order to stave off the Chaos cultists overwhelming the planet. Firing the Warlord Titan's main guns to destroy the spire which had spawned the initial invasion of Chaos, the Ultramarines sealed the portal before confronting Nemiroth. Scrutinized by Leandros by virtue of his resistance to the warp's influence, Demetrian entrusted the power source to Sidonus to allay Leandros' fears. Struck down by Nemiroth, veteran Sergeant Sidonus died a warrior's death, as the Chaos Lord claimed the power source for his own. Assisted by warriors of the Bloodravens chapter as he charged for the spire, Titus faced Nemiroth upon its broken summit and banished the Chaos Lord during his ascension to demonhood. Retrieving Titus via dropship as his body plummeted from the spire, though wounded, Titus had once again survived impossible odds. Yet with victory achieved, an Inquisitor of the Ordo Hereticus, Frax, alongside a retinue of Black Templars, stood by the side of Leandros. Observing the wounds inflicted by chaotic means, the Puritans demanded Captain Titus surrender in order to vindicate himself from claims of corruption. Stripped of his rank as captain of the Second Company, the command of the Guardians of the Temple now would be entrusted to the brash seneschal, Cato Sicarius. Interrogated by Inquisitor Frax for an entire century, Frax's mistrust of the Astartes originated from the rebellion of the Badab War, fueling his methods of torture as he attempted to draw out confessions from Titus. Kept in stasis between interrogation sessions, no matter the wounds inflicted, with no signs of heresy unearthed, Frax refused to relinquish his charge back to the embrace of the Ultramarines. Ignoring several petitions from Marneus Calgar and representatives of the Holy Ordos of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition, Titus endured the torment of Inquisitor Frax until further methods of testing his purity were outlasted by Frax's own mortality. Possessed by a demon on the homeworld of the Grey Slayers, in his attempts to purge the traitor Astartes, Frax himself had proven unable to uphold the Puritan standards he himself had championed. Put down by the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Malleus, the Grey Knights, Inquisitor Frax's death required the intervention of the Red Hunters chapter when investigating his holdings. Finding Titus within his remote watch station, the Red Hunters released the Space Marine held within stasis, his life spared by the Inquisitor overseeing the operation, who hoped not to draw further disgrace to her organization. His fate hereafter, a chronicle I shall elucidate with sanction from the Inquisition, in order to conclude his journey.
Captain Titus has been corrupted by Chaos, Inquisitor Thrax.
I am no heretic!
You lie! Only an agent of Chaos could withstand such warp exposure.
I sent the demon to oblivion.
But did you have unholy assistance? We must know. You will submit to my authority, Captain, or the Inquisition must conclude that you have corrupted every Ultramarine under your command, not to mention those who stand at your side.
Leave my brothers and the lieutenant alone. I will come with you. I do not know why I can resist the touch of chaos, but I swear I will discover the truth.
We will discover many truths, Space Marine.
Codex Astartes leaves no room for doubt. You cannot touch the warp and emerge unscathed.
The Codex Astartes is a set of rules. They guide us, shape us as Ultramarines, teach us to hold duty and honor sacred above all. But how we live with those rules is the true test of a Space Marine. And you have failed.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Captain Titus continues to fight in the name of the Emperor, no matter the burdens placed upon him. Though Demetrius never sought to become a senior officer of his chapter, his pledge to fight in the name of the Emperor is absolute. Justice is a virtue more corrupted than any, for it is those in power who wield it, often to benefit their own ambitions. Be wary of those who proclaim themselves the arbiters of justice, for they are often the most susceptible to embrace its misuse. For those who wield power by necessity and not ambition are often the most righteous of souls, for duty is its own reward for those of moral character.